Sir, we are in. Sir. Sir, we are in YouTube right now. 1 minute to go. Sir, we are in. Sir. Sir, now 10 o'clock you can start, sir.
Hi, Ranga.
Sir, your voice not audible, sir.
Okay, now?
Okay, sir. Start from +3.
The first slide, okay. Japanese shogun government, what we call as the Edo government, which is before the Meiji Era, okay, they had a closed door policy. The closed door policy was very tough. Even if somebody was a castaway, either tried to escape from Japan or from some other country, found floating in the waters of Japan, they were summarily executed. It was a very tough thing. And Japan closed its door, except for a small portion in the southern island of Kyushu near Nagasaki, where the Tejima Island was there, an artificial island that was created where the Dutch people were there doing some trading and business. But for that, Japan was literally closed. Of course, that also helped them to build their own arts and other things. So now, at that point of time, all kinds of foreign relations were banned. In 1853, President Fillmore of USA sent 4 ships to Edo Bay to Japan. Of course, US had its own personal interest. They were doing business with China, and they were, that time only way you can do is by ship using the sea between Japan, China and the US. But in between, they wanted to have a halt fill up the diesel that is needed for the crude oil that's needed for the ships, and the sailors needed a rest, all that. The only place that they could think of was Japan. So they had to go and make Japan to force his doors open to this thing. So they sent Commodore Perry on that mission. Matthew Perry was official orders to request 3 things from the Japanese government. 1, better treatment for castaways. Okay, opening the ports for provisions and fuel of Japanese ports to the American ships, and opening the ports for trade. And the 4 ships showed up in Japan in Uruga Bay near Yokohama, and then they all had a big cannon. You can see a picture of that drawn by those days, how the ship, they were called as a black ship because they were all painted black, and they're very ferocious looking with so many cannons, because Japanese have not seen ships coming with cannons at that time, and the Japanese were shocked. And Perry made it very clear that he would use the force only if necessary, and this is only a bit of an intimidation. And he delivered the letter and told them that he would be back in 1 year's time. In 1 year's time, he gave the time to Japanese Edo government to change, the Tokugawa government to change its mind and open the doors. Then he returned in 1854 with 9 ships. They had little choice but to agree. The Japanese decided to open their ports and door. The closed door of Japan came to cease. Now, following this action, there are so many internal turmoil took place, and then finally the emperor became again powerful. The power was taken away from the shogun, and along with that, by the overthrowing the shogun and then the Meiji emperor taking over, modernization of Japan started taking place. So that time the country started the Meiji rule or Meiji Era, which is called the Enlightened rule, because at that time Meiji Era's plea was knowledge shall be sought throughout the world as to strengthen the foundations of the imperial rule. That's called the imperial rule. Then, this already I've also talked about Chiosone. He was an Italian printer, engraver who taught the printing technique to Japanese. And he was one man who was permitted by Meiji government to draw his portrait. It's the only portrait that, the first portrait of Meiji, Emperor Meiji that was made, that was by Chiosone. And then I was asking a Japanese friend of mine, why is that the emperor's picture, maybe the crown prince, they don't mind putting it up. But once you become an emperor, he is not on the stamp. Because my friend was said, perhaps they don't want to put a stamp on his face in the post office. However, this is the only stamp in which you can see Emperor Meiji that was released by Serbia. That was done on 2007, in 2007, in the year 2007, to commemorate the 125th year of Serbia, because when the monarch of Serbia took power again back, and then he communicated with Emperor Meiji, because he said we are the 2 monarchs in the world. So immediately Emperor Meiji also communicated back to him. So to commemorate that sort of a communication beginning between the 2 emperors, or one from Serbia and one from Japan. When Serbia was celebrating 125th year, the stamp was released. Down below, you can see Meiji's family photograph. Now, if you look at the history, because railways cannot be talked in isolated place, telegraph started operating in 1869, and the postal service in 1871. And 1872, Western clothes were required for all government officials and postmen. These clothes were even required during ceremonial occasions. Okay, and starting from January 1st, 1873, The Western solar calendar replaced the old lunar calendar. But one of the greatest physical symbols of westernization in Japan was its railways. Also, the education in Japan, more westernized ideas came. People were sent to US, and then ideas were brought. Japan started becoming modernized. The first railway was opened in the May 1872. And then within 15 years, 1,000 miles of track had been laid. And by the end of the century, there were 5,000 miles of railway tracks were laid. The new infrastructure made traveling great distances much less of a burden to Japanese people. They wanted to travel, see new places, communicate with relatives, friends, everything. Railways made it very possible affair. Now, if you look at down, that is the painting of the first few years of railway steam locomotive pulling their trains. And then when Tohoku Shinkansen, that is the Shinkansen that goes to north of Tokyo, when that was made, the line was opened in 1982. That's 1982 is 172 was railways first started operating. It's 110 years later, the Shinkansen, which was going south, which was established in 1964 to Osaka to start with. Now it has also expanded to the north. So for that, a second-hand pair of stamps were released, and one of them showed the old rail engine, steam engine that is there, and the new Shinkansen that is going there. That's the zero Shinkansen. Now the Shinkansen looks very, very different. Now, the impact of model railroads brought by foreigners such as Putumain and Calvert Perry were huge. The British also demonstrated a steam locomotive in Nagasaki. Saga domain, Saga is one of the prefectures there next to Nagasaki, and which is very well known for its high winds. The Japanese feudal domain or system called Han was the thing, made a working model and planned to construct a line. The Tokugawa, the Edo government in Tokyo, reviewed the railway construction from Edo to Kyoto, because both were, one was the current capital, Kyoto was the earlier capital. They want to correct it by a railway line in the England route, but the line did not come to reality before the Meiji Restoration, when Meiji Emperor took power. Then the impact of model railroads brought by foreigners, then Meiji Restoration made the railway line a reality. The Railway Day was celebrated to commemorate the inauguration of the first passenger railroad between Shimbashi in Tokyo and Yokohama in Kanagawa Prefecture on 14th October 1872. Okay. The first commemorative stamp to be released on Japan Railways on the 14th October 1942 for the 70th anniversary of the first Japan Railways Day. You can see the first steam engine. This is a C-59 steam loco whose picture has been given for the first commemorative stamp to commemorate in 1942. Okay. The first Japan Rail Day. Of course, there is a reason why October 14th was being celebrated as Japan Rail Day. We'll see that after this. In 1868, Thomas Blake Glover, a Scottish merchant, was responsible for bringing the first steam locomotive, Iron Duke, to Japan, which he demonstrated on an 8-mile track in the district of Nagasaki. But politically, this was unacceptable to a new Japanese regime, and so the government of Japan decided to build railway from a major period port of Yokohama to Tokyo using British financing and 300 British and European technical advisors, civil engineers, general managers, locomotive builders, and drivers. On September 12, 1870, if you see, there are a number of dates which are all in 1872. September 12, 1872, the first railway between Shimbashi, later Yokohama opened. A one-way trip took 53 minutes and service started with 9 rounds of trips daily. But if you look at the next picture, Japan's first railway opened in 1872, connecting the new Tokyo capital and the port city Yokohama, Sakuramicho. However, the Tokyo new main terminal, which is Shimbashi Shiodome, opened on October 14, 1872. The grand ceremony attended by Emperor Meiji himself, and he himself flagged off the first train, rode abroad the inaugural trip. He boarded the train, and so that became the railway day. Even earlier, the train was running, but the day the station was open, he flagged off, and he also rode the train. That day became the railway day. The 6200 class steam locomotive, a British built and used for the Tokaido mainline service from 1898 to 1914. Look at those days engines. Then this Tokaido Line. Tokaido railway line is the one that is connecting Tokyo with Osaka. That's the line that we call as Tokaido Line, passing through Yokohama. The early railway construction operators were responsible for the Railway Bureau of the Ministry of Public Works. In 1893, the Railway Bureau became Railway Agency, and the 589-kilometer line between Tokyo and Kobe was opened in 1899 as the nation's first main rail artery. The Tokaido Line between Tokyo and Osaka was completely electrified in 1956, followed by Sanyo Line running to western tip of Honshu. Honshu is the main island. So 1956, on the November 19th, to commemorate this electrification, a first stamp, though this is not the first multicolor stamp on the railway, this is the first multicolor stamp. The earlier stamp was the one that was there for the centenary of this railway, which is only a monocolor souvenir sheet that is released. But this is the first thing that is released for the electrification of that rail. Then after that came the Tokaido Shinkansen, that is between Tokyo and Osaka, which is done as the main nationwide network. That's where it started, because that's the time, 1964, the Tokyo Olympics started. So people were traveling, they wanted to travel fast, high speed. And there is a big fad for high-speed train. So Shinkansen network started. Along with the Sanyo Shinkansen, it forms a continuous high-speed railway through Taihyo Belt, also known as the Tokaido Corridor. Now today, if you see, the whole of Japan is collected from the southernmost tip to the northern island Hokkaido. Still the work is going on to reach the tip of Hokkaido, but now you can enter Hokkaido, about which across the sea we have a tunnel. We'll talk about the tunnel a little later. Okay. The Tokaido Shinkansen project was awarded the Prime Minister's Award on October 14th, 1964. Shinkansen, which is a new trunk line, was established, an international standard gauge, taking funds from the World Bank. So there's a stamp that is released to commemorate this. This is a multicolor stamp. It's a commemorative stamp, 36 by 26 centimeters. 10 yen was the face value of this. Then the commencing of the railroad system, 100 years of that was celebrated. So for that, the stamp was released in 1972. So let's not mistake this with the Railway Day. Railway Day is always on November 10th, whereas this is 100 years of establishing the system. That is in 1972, March 8th, this stamp was released. By the time Shinkansen was already running on a highly raised railroad, elevated railroad, for 8 years. It was touching a speed of 220 kilometers per hour, and there were two lines, Tokaido Shinkansen and Sanyo Shinkansen, in each two directions. Okay, the first generation Shinkansen trains to be built, the O series or the Z series, Zero series, started operating on the Tokaido high-speed line, which opened in 1964. Production of these trains continued until 1986, and they are eventually pulled out from operation in 2008. And of course, later models have come. Hideo Shima was the inventor of the bullet train. We also talk about, when we talk about Shinkansen in the management theory, the Shinkansen runs the fastest because they say all the high-speed trains all over the world where they run, including Shinkansen. One of the reasons why they're all able to go very fast, reduce speed immediately and pick up speed immediately is every compartment in that train. It's a long train, 16 compartments, long train. It has got a traction motor in every compartment. When the power is shared, the operation is efficient. So in any organization, if the power is not shared, if it is all controlled in one place, maybe from the driver's cabin alone, then the operation is not efficient. Now, one more thing we say when we talk about Shinkansen, it's a long 16 compartment train. Its turnaround time is only 7 minutes. The papers call it as a 7 minutes miracle. You know what is that 7 minutes miracle? A team of cleaners, they wait on the platform. Then the moment train comes, they bow, wait for all the passengers to get on. They go inside. In 7 minutes, they clean the whole train and then get off and again bow and see the train off to go to the next train. In 7 minutes, they clear the whole thing, which is called as a 7 minutes miracle. And Nikkei has called them as the toughest crew in Japan. So what that company did, only one thing it did. It told them cleaning is a very, very genuinely a great job. Don't misunderstand your job to be very mean or very lower end because you're doing a great service. So they all felt they're doing a great service and therefore it's a 7 minutes miracle is happening. Now, if you see 1996, August 27, again, commemorative stamp shows Shinkansen with Mount Fuji at the back. Then, commemorative issues for the Centenary of Japan Railways. There are two stamps. Both were released for commemorative 100 years of Japanese thing. If you see, both of them have been released on October 14th, the day the Emperor Meiji, 100 years before, flagged off and got into the train and rode. So one is ukiyo-e, sort of painted thing, which shows a steam locomotive, and then the best engine of those days, which could take the highest load. Normally, the engines are all classified by the number of wheels. If they say 2, 6, 4 or something, that means there is a pair of two wheels in the front, driving wheels. 6 means 3 pairs are running, and then 4 at the back. So that is the way. And this is one of those steam locomotive, but it's supposed to be hauling the big loads in those days, SC62-3. Now, we are talking about steam locomotive series. That is the next set of stamps on locomotive Japan Post has released. This is 1974 to 1975. Okay, if you see, there were 2 steam engines, SL-C57 and D51. The class C57 is a type of 462 system, that is 2 wheels in the front, 3 driving wheels, and 2 supporting wheels in the back. It's built in Japan, and most of the almost all the steam locomotives, Shinkansen, they were all Hideo Shima's handiwork. He was the man behind all of them. A total of 201 Class C57 locomotives were built and designed by Hideo Shima. Another 14 C57 were built for export to Taiwan. At that time, Japan was occupied Taiwan. And then 1942 to 53, when Japan handed over, they also left all the engines for Taiwan to work with their own transportation system. Then the Class D51 type, again a 282 system wheels, 1, 4, and 1 on both sides. Locomotive built by the Japanese Government Railways, JGR. A stamp was shown on the Japanese railway stamp system. You can see the stamp at the top and the actual engine that is This is one engine that's still being used, okay, as late as I think 2018 or something. This is still running, okay. And Kawasaki Heavy Industries, rolling stock company, and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, they built them from 1936 to 1945, and again from 1950 to 51. There is a pair of Saturn stamps that are there, and multicolor. We'll talk about the other two stamps, other two engines in the next slide, SLD 52 and C58. Now, if you look at this, the C58, it's a 262 wheel arrangement steam locomotive built by JGR, and total of 427 class C58 locomotives are built. And again, Hideshima, and two of these classes, this class were preserved in working condition. Down below, you can see two steam locomotives still in working condition moving around, and both the pictures were taken by me because I'm very fond of steam locomotives running in Japan. So I had to look at the timetable and read where exactly is the best place to go and take a photograph. I went to the vantage points and took the photographs. Then the class D52, if you see, it's a 282 system. That means a bigger. The driving wheels are 4 in number. Was built by the Japanese government, railway, and various manufacturers. D for the 4 sets of driving wheels, and the class number is 52 for tender locos, and the number 50 through 99 were assigned to under the 1920 locomotive classification rule. That means they made between 50 and 92. That means around 40 locomotives. They were numbered like this. Then steam locomotives class 8620 for passenger and freight station, and class C11 called tank locomotives. They're the huge ones. And then they were released in the year 1975 on April 3rd. These stamps are seen multicolor, and steam locomotive showing themselves in full action. And it's a Saturn and stamp, the pair is there. Of course, I'm also showing the individual stamp. The class 8620 is a passenger and freight station. It's a type of 260 steam locomotive built in Japan from 1914 to 1929. It is Japan's first mass-produced passenger locomotive. A total of 872 8620 were built. Okay. Sometimes they used to connect 2 or 3 engines. It's a triple header I have shown you at the bottom. Then C11 is a type of 264T steam locomotive built by the Japanese government and built between 1932 to 1947. The total of 381 class C11 locomotives are built and designed again by Hideyoshima, and 6 are still in operation going around. I've shown you the C51 and 9,600 stamps. That is there. The next, I'll be explaining about these 2 stamps the next slide. But the Saturn and pair has been issued, so I'm showing the Saturn and pair of stamps here. And then if you see, class C51 is a type of 462 steam locomotive where C classification indicates 3 sets of driving wheels. The C51 introduced 9 inches, 5 feet 9 inches diameter driving wheels. It raised the average speed of Tokaido main line from 47.3 kilometers to 55.3 kilometers per hour. 1930, C51 hauled the Tsubame Swallow Express, reducing the travel time between Tokyo and Kobe to 9 hours. Okay, and then Tsubame is the name of the train, which English equivalent is Swallows. The class 9600 is again a 280, so it means a big locomotive. And then this is normally called as Kyuroku. Kyuroku is Q is 9, Roku is 6, 9600, so they call it as Q. It is extensively used for freight throughout Japan. And then we have the class 7100 locomotive Benkei and 1880 class C150 and SL-187. These are all different series of smaller locomotives. Then the class 7100 was a Japanese steam locomotive, which was first used in Hokkaido. Hokkaido is the northernmost island of Japan. Upon the establishment, the government sponsored Hokkaido Horonoi Railway in 1880. 8 locomotives were imported from the United States. The 6 engines were named major historical literary figures. These are all the people who are very well-known cultural leaders. Their names were given to the locomotives. And then after first two engines did not receive any names. Balance received the names. The JGR class 150 was a steam railway locomotive from 1872. You can see that that's the first locomotive you can see on the right-hand side. That's a locomotive number 1 that is operating. The locomotive was one of the 10 different locomotive types imported from UK in 1871 and entered service on the first Japanese railway line, okay, between Shimbashi and Yokohama, Sakurangicho. And then 14th October 1872, that's the railway day. Okay. And then initially as numbered 1, now it is classified as 150 and 1909. And you can, down below, you can see the steam locomotive is there. People are walking around. That is the locomotive. That's not the first locomotive anyway, but that's a steam locomotive kept symbolically in front of the Shimbashi station to show that is where the first steam locomotive started operating. I'm showing you some first day covers and cards which have been made for the steam locomotives and Shinkansen. Now, if you see the bottommost 2 cards, they've got nothing to do with steam locomotives, so we'll be talking about them. This card is the 50th anniversary of the Tokyo subway station. Subway system is what? And then 1972 is one, 1977 is another one on December 6th. 1915, Japan's first underground railway station opened in Tokyo Station. This only for the railway post office, but not for passengers at that time. In 1827, Tokyo Underground Railway Company Limited opened Japan's first underground line, the subway Ginza Line, that's old as, on December 30th, 1927, and publicized as the first underground railway in the Orient. The distance to the line was only 2.2 kilometers between Ueno and Asakusa. Now, the same 2 stamps, they are also issued as a Saturn and pair. So I've shown you the Saturn and pair for the stamps as well as individual stamps. The groundbreaking in Ginza Line on September 27, 1925, the old photograph also shown here. The Tohoku Shinkansen Railroad line opening. Okay, there's a Saturn and there's the first stamp I showed you in the very beginning, along with the small steam locomotive we had. Okay, now we also see the Zero Shinkansen, but the one that went down south was blue color, this is green color, that's all the difference. Okay, it has 2 mini Shinkansen branch lines in Yamagata Shinkansen and Akita Shinkansen. There are 2 different directions they go. The line is operated by East Japan Railway Company, JR East. The 159.9 kilometers long portion of the line between Tokyo Station, Kuryoso Station in Asushibashi because of the difference in electrification. Okay, because even though the voltage may be there, in Osaka and Tokyo, the cycles are different. One is 50 cycle, one is 60 cycle. Okay, the south is 1500 V voltage DC, and in the north it is 20 kV AC. In Kuriso, there are no regularly scheduled passenger services that travel through that station. Okay, so there are 2 lines that they have to branch out at that point to go to 2 different stations. Now, the Joetsu Shinkansen is a high-speed Shinkansen railway line connecting Tokyo and Niigata, again going up north, Japan, by Tohoku Shinkansen. Tohoku Shinkansen is the base from there, and then operated by East Japan Railway Company, JR East. It started on November 15, 1982, 40 years ago. I mean, when this stamp was released, I'm talking about. Despite of its name, the line does not pass through the city of Joetsu, though it's called a Joetsu. The Joetsu does not, or the historic Joetsu region, which is instead is served by the Hokuriku Shinkansen. That's another Shinkansen that serves that region. So now you can see a Saturn pair of stamps. It's a vertical Saturn that you see. And then the individual stamps are there, which are given as 1982 both, and released on November 11. And then the Shinkansen 30 years running, this commemoration. This the old engines. Okay, the Joetsu Shinkansen 30th running. There is there's a picture of that, and then the old locomotives are all kept here and there, like a steam locomotive. There are electrical locomotives. Even on Chennai, there you can see electric locomotive stop, which we brought from Britain. It is still there as an old one. Now, when the railway started operating, people find it convenient to travel, see friends. Apart from that, they were till then they were all having man running or going on horses. The mails were transported, so they thought they can take the train, the mails by the train. Therefore, the passenger trains or the faster trains which travel, they also had a mail compartment. And then it was introduced that people go sit in the train and then sort out the stamps. However, as it's a train service is limited compared to air and road service. When they all become stronger, people found it's much more easier, convenient to use the road and air. Therefore, slowly the train postal system started dwindling, and therefore they have to close down this. So a 260 yen postage stamps are issued on March 26, 1987 to bid goodbye to the railway postal system. These are the two stamps. If you see 1987, there are two multicolor stamps, 56 by 37 as a Saturn and pair, and this is by offset lithography. And then 1987, the Japan Railway Group, before that it was Japan National Railway, was split and it became JNR, 6 private companies plus 1 freight company. That's how they have shifted. I've also shown you in different colors how the JR has been split. Now, at that time, if you see, there are 2 stamps which are issued. Both are valued 60 yens for commemorating this splitting of JR group, JNR, into 6 groups of JR. And both are multicolor, both are stamps, both are commemorative. The left-hand side stamp is printed by photogravure, whereas this is also photogravure. This is another set of stamps I want to show you. 2 stamps, same day release, but different way of printing them. One is lithography, one is photogravure. I'm sorry. I'll have to see that, and then is it here? I'll come to that. Now, this is the same information sheet on this inauguration of the railway service. That is, the JNR becomes JR. That is what it is. Now, I told you earlier, the Seikan tunnel is what we will talk about. Now, if you see this stamp, there is a tunnel called Seikan Tunnel. Mainland Honshu is connected to the northernmost island, Hokkaido, by a tunnel. Okay, then that's an undersea tunnel below the sea, and I'll show you the details of this. If you see the tunnel, I'll come back to the stamp again. The tunnel goes underground in a length of 30.55 kilometers and under the seabed for a length of 23.3 kilometers. The deepest point being located 100 meters below the seabed and which is also 140 meters below the surface. The construction started in 1971 and it took 16 years to complete that. After it's planned and the commercial operation started in 1988, Tsugaru Kankyo Line, that is the government of Japan railway. So if you see, this tunnel has become very vital to connect not only all of them. Now under this tunnel, they have made the track as a multiple track. So normal trains can run as well as Shinkansen, because Shinkansen track is slightly different from that of the normal trains. Now, you have made it, but you cannot change the train wheels for this. So they put it as a multiple track, whichever train wants to. So the same track, because they cannot construct a different tunnel for this and different tunnel for Shinkansen. So the same tunnel, but with multiple track, both normal railways run and Shinkansen, and at the same time, two Shinkansen run opposite also in the same tunnel. This tunnel is supposed to be a great achievement in construction civil engineering of Japan. The tunnel is 53.85, 33.46 dual gauge. That's why we say different. Dual gauge railway tunnel in Japan with 14.5 miles or 23.3 kilometers long portion under the seabed of Tsugaru Strait. Tsugaru Strait is the one that is between Honshu and Hokkaido, which separated the main Japanese island Honshu from that of the northern island Hokkaido. The track level is about 100 meters below the seabed and 240 meters below the sea level. Now, we also have a set of electric locomotive series. We have seen the steam locomotive. The electric locomotives, if you see them, the number is 1,000 series. We don't have so much information as we had on the steam locomotive on the electric locomotive. So I'll be presenting you the electric locomotives, the corresponding stamps that are released. So this is almost all the locomotives you see. A few of the specimens are still parked in different places. In some places, these locomotives still run pulling freight trains. Japanese freight trains are frightfully very long trains, so they are still using this. If you look at them, a class ED10 electric locomotive operated in Japan from 1922. Two locomotives in the class were designed, built by Westinghouse Electric and Battlewing 1922. Originally designed as class 1000, the locomotives were reclassified E10 in 1928. EH10 is a class of electric locomotive with 2 units of DC freight locomotives. That's why it's a big locomotive which can haul and then you can see the first day covers of these locomotives. And then we have the EF53 locomotive. I've shown you the picture of the locomotive as well as the stamp above. The details of the stamp are given 1990. The stamp was released, but not the locomotive much earlier than that. 1990, April 23rd. I'm sorry, there are some children making noise around, so it may be disturbing, but I'm sorry about it. And then 1990, March 23rd, again, you had another trim locomotive, which is there. And then EF55 locomotive and ED61 are 2 locomotives. The class ES55 is a 2-wheel arrangement electric locomotive type, consists of 3 locomotives built in 1936 by Hitachi, Kawasaki, and Toyo Electric. All the 3 were making the same locomotive with their own the design and specification same, but they were manufactured. And these were nicknamed as Moomin. Then we have the EF57, EF30 locomotives. Then the first day covers. Then Railway Ibara route opening. Okay, this is again connecting one of the southwest island with the main island. We have this thing is there. Okay, the Japan National started the construction of the line in 1966, but financial constraints altered the work in 1980. The Ibara Railway Company established 1986, and the construction resumed. The totally new funded third sector company, and the line opened 11 a.m. January 11, 1999. Dual track electrified as far as Kiyone. That is the thing. Then Okayama Station is shown here from where the train is operating, right in front of the station. It's a dual gauge train that is there. And then the stamp was issued by Okayama Prefecture. Japan has got what you call as a prefecture stamp. I mean, every prefecture is nothing other than states. We have 47 prefectures in Japan, and they're nothing other than like our own states. But the stamps are always released by the central post office. No prefecture can issue the stamps, but we call them as prefecture stamps, giving focus that this particular thing is available in that prefecture, focusing mainly on the prefecture and its facts around the events around the prefecture. Then we also had a series of sheets called the 20th century sheet. This is a 20th century sheet in which you can see there is a tramway. Originally, if you see, the tramway was pulled by horses, though we had tram lines on which the tram car was running on wheels, steel wheels, but the pulling power was by horses. Horses has been a part of Japanese system. Many cities in Japan still have streetcars. They are called as streetcars, though electrified Shinkone Densha, because they make tin, 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 so they call it Chin Chin Densha. Okay, and originally they were pulled by horses in Japan. The Kyoto Electric Railroad was the first firm system that opened the tram system, starting operation from 1895, and by 1932 the network had grown to 82 railway companies in 65 cities, with a total network length of 1,479 kilometers. Even today, in Tokyo, there is still one line that's running. Hiroshima, there's running. In down south, many cities, they have tram lines which are still running, and they run on electric power now, not on horsepower. Now, on the same 20th century, many events that took place during the 20th century were brought in smaller portions. A big stamp sheet like what you see on the left. It has got about 10 stamps, out of which 1 or 2 stamps are allocated differently. I mean, each one of the stamps they may be interrelated to each other or totally independent of each other. Now, 2 of the stamps here are for the, if you can see, if you remember the earlier thing, this is for the Ginza Line, which was opened, the railway, underground first railway line. It was opened in Tokyo first for post office, then it became this thing, Ginza Line, 2.2 kilometers between Ueno and Asakusa. So that became a part of this 20th century. There's one more 20th century in which they set an end, the D51. It's a huge, beautiful locomotive. So they can't put it in one stamp. So they put it in 2 stamps. And the main picture is also that stamp. The D51 is still running. Okay. Total number of 1,115 D51s were built. And if you see, this stamp was released on 2000 February 23rd. And it's photogravure printing. Okay. Then this is a very interesting, if you see the small train, I also, myself and my wife, we went to see this train to Matsuyama, and then we boarded the train. We also traveled. The picture of that guy turning it goes one way. At the end of the thing, this train, the engine is so small and it's very light. So one man just turns the engine from this side. So the same train, it's not a loop line, goes one end to another end, at the other end there's a turning circle. So one man turns, the driver turns, and then they again go back. This is called as Bochan Rensha. Bochan Rensha is nothing other than a train. Bochan is the name of the character. Okay, there was a Bochan school teacher. There's a writer called Natsume Soseki. Natsume Soseki's novel Bochan is very famous. Bochan is a school teacher, and then he travels every day by the train. So that's how this train has become Bochan Rensha. The original trains were powered by steam locomotive, and then they were just puffing up the smoke and going. But today they are being dieselized, but still they are made in that way that you still can get the smoke coming up. So there was one, this Bochan Rensha is very famous, and I was very thrilled about this after seeing Natsume Soseki's novel. So I thought I should go and see Bochan Rensha. So we took all the way train. It is down south in a separate island. You have to cross the sea and go into Matsuyama. We did from the main island. Then we traveled in the train one way, and then again came back another way, myself and my wife. So it is in Ehime Prefecture. Ehime Prefecture is also very famous. Once upon a time, a fishing trawler from the name Ehime collided with an American ship and then sank. Yeah, so there's a big full size was also released, so on which the Bochan Rensha and the teacher is there. Now, they also brought some self-adhesive stamps on steam locomotives D51, 65 years completion. D51 is very famous steam locomotive, like it's a workaholic horse or workhorse of a steam locomotive. So 65 years that they made a double, there's a very special adhesive stamps that they made. So there was a big rush, so I went and bought them. Then you can see a very small train running. Hagi was the castle town of the Maori family during the Edo period. The stamp depicts the house of Kikuyas and the students, the one on the top. It's a settlement, vertical settlement. And Suwano is famous for the samurai residence from its days as a castle town. Okay. And then the stamp depicts Yamaguchi-go, steam locomotive crossing the bridge for the Suwanagawa. And then this stamp was released in 1999, October 13th. Okay. A photograph you, again, it's a vertical settlement. Now, Tamatoshi monorail. This is running in Tokyo. It's operated by Tokyo Tama Intercity Monorail Company. Monorails are also very famous in many cities in Japan. You can see monorails. They just run on one rail. So the Japanese know how to make the best use of space. Okay, and the passengers between suburban cities Sagiyama-moto and Tama and Tachikawa, Hino and Achioji, all this in 36 minutes they are covered. Okay, the first section from Kamikitudai and Tachikawa-kita opened in 1998. Okay, then similarly you have a monorail in Okinawa in Naha. Then you have the Kyushu Subame. Kyushu initially, Kyushu had a Shinkansen, never had a Shinkansen. Then they extended Shinkansen crossing the sea between Japan mainland and the Kyushu island. Then after that, they have also extended almost to the down south of Kyushu island. Now, this Subame was operated by Kyushu Railway Company in Kyushu Shinkansen, and it's a limited. It succeeded. This Shinkansen succeeded limited trains on the Tokaido Sanyo main line. Okay. Now Sanyo line runs from Osaka. Tokaido line runs from Tokyo. Kyushu Shinkansen line. Okay, Subame. This is released on 12th March 2004. Okay. Then this is JR Shinjuku Railway Station special stamp railway station area. This sheet is named as Trains of Shinjuku. Okay, there are 10 self-adhesive stamps. Okay, each just peel and paste. That's all. Each has got a face value of 80 yens, and the sheet is 800 yens. There are 10 different lines that use Shinjuku Station. Shinjuku Station has got around 4 million passengers every day traveling through the gates in Shinjuku. Shinjuku Station is a major railway station in Tokyo. It is one of the world's very busiest railway stations, serving as the main connecting hub of railway traffic between Tokyo special wards, Western Tokyo, the intercity rail, commuter trail, and subway line, everything, you name it, they're all coming there. It was averaged by 3.59 million people per day in 2008, making by far the world's busiest station. Shinjuku has got totally 35 platforms, another 17 platforms, totally 53 platforms, 17 platforms to the additional Shinjuku. That across the thing, there's another, they're connected together and can be accessed through 5 hallways to 5 directly connected stations without surfacing outside. And the entire, they have over 200 exits. So Shinjuku had a special stamp. And then opening of the Hokuriku Shinkansen line between Nagano and Kanazawa. Nagano and Kanazawa, again, see in the up north, if you go, you can go from Tokyo by Shinkansen to a certain point. From there, you have to go by different Shinkansens, or one Shinkansen goes in the other direction. You have to look at that and then get in the right train that will take you to the right day. These stamps are issued to commemorate opening of the Hokuriku Shinkansen line. Look at the beautiful stamp that they have made. And this stamp has got 82 yens, and then they were released on 2015. Then we have all the series that they have written. So this way, this new service will shorten the travel between Tokyo and Kanazawa to 2 hours and 28 minutes at a minimum. They're trying to reduce the travel time every time. The Yokosuka Line is a railway line in Japan operated by East Japan Railway. The Yokosuka Line connects Tokyo Station with Kurihama, Yokosuka, and Kanagawa. Officially, the name Yokosuka Line, Yokosuka has got a very big American base there, assigned to the 23.9 kilometer segment between Ofuna and Kurihama Station. The entire route is commonly referred to as Yokosuka Line by JR East for passenger service. June 16, 1889, the line operated between Ofuna and Yokosuka with intermediate stations in Kamakura and Zuchi. October 12, 1909, line renamed as Yokosuka Line. That's a line and the trains that are there, how they have grown. This all in a stamp sheet. Then Japanese railways, the number of railways are there, and then they're beautiful. The engines, the locomotives are very, very beautiful. This is the first issue of the Japanese Railways series with the theme Japanese Railways and related topics. The stamps are issued to commemorate National Train Day, and that is, in our place, Train Day means normally there will be a lot of commotion with the students getting on top of the train, and that is enacted to celebrate the first day locomotive train running between Shimbashi and Yokohama in 1872. The stamps depict the Tokyo Marunouchi Station, the one that you see at the top of the thing, Marunouchi Station at the back, and the Blue Ribbon Award trains. These are the trains that are given the Blue Ribbon Award. The series number 2, if you can see, that is there. The second series is the theme of Japanese Railway. The stamp was issued to commemorate National Train Day. And the same thing, you can see all those different trains are there. Then another, that's a series 3 is there. Then if you see National 3, this was issued in 2015 October thing. And then this shows you Tokaido Shinkansen. Look at the Tokaido Shinkansen C223G, it's Odakyu Express. All beautiful trains. Wait a minute. What's happening? then Series 4. Then they also made a Series 5 and Series 6. Series 6, of course, you know, the train people are waiting. That's the Tokyo subway. Now they also made all the Shinkansen Golden Jubilee. These are the different Shinkansen train starting from the top, okay, the zero Shinkansen to the latest Shinkansen. They put all the Shinkansen, they made a series of stamps. This is released on October 1st, 2014. Each one of the stamp by itself is 82 yens and then 10 yens. They have been divided into a Centenary pair. The front only goes to the front of the Shinkansen. In order that you don't miss the second part of the Centenary, also has got some other Shinkansen face side. Yeah. And then opening of the Hokkaido Shinkansen. Opening of the Hokkaido Shinkansen, this line is Shin Aomori to Shin Hokkaido, Hakodate in Hokkaido. Hakodate is the first station, and it's got a beautiful tower from where you can see the whole of the thing. So for the Hokkaido Shinkansen opening, this is on the March 25th, 2016. Then Shinkansen running through Japan main island, Honshu. If you look at the picture on top, right hand side, on top, you can see the line goes right through Japan. There is one, like your backbone, from the backbone, number of other bones are there. So the Joetsu Shinkansen, Hokuriku Shinkansen, they're all dividing and going around. This is the thing. And down below, you can see Prime Minister Modi is shaking hands with Abe, Prime Minister Abe, to bring Shinkansen to India. We'll be having Shinkansen to India. Definitely, India has got a very large railway line. So I hope we'll also run railways on time, punctually, like Japan. Then I'm also showing some of the other countries' stamps which are made, Japanese stamps. Japanese trains are the main feature. This is from the Malaysia. They brought this stamp for the Philo Nippon Tokyo stamp exhibition that they had, Philo Nippon in 2011. And one on the left-hand side is stamps of Paraguay. And then this is Philo Nippon. This is stamps by Cuba. So on the right-hand side, you can see it's Cuban stamps, all the Cuba brought stamps from that. Then these are picture postcards of Japanese stamps. And then with a small stamp of that particular line, you can see with a Mount Fuji at the back and some of the seashore thing. And down below, I've just shown you railways for the world. Mongolia's made a stamp. Others who have made the stamps, I put them there. Then we have one by Paraguay. Okay, again, Japanese don't show the emperor on the stamps, but other countries they use this. Again is the emperor on the stamp, and then Paraguay, then Maldives. They all want to show Japanese stamps, and then steam locomotives, electric trains, the smaller islands, St. Vincent, they made this thing. Then when I was in Yokohama and when I was in Osaka, suddenly I saw in the post office, they were selling a pack of postcards, which I can buy, put a stamp, and then I bought that set. It showed a postcard, set of postcards showing the different Japanese trains which are running only in Osaka region. So those are the stamps that I bought. Okay. And during the Philo Nippon issue, the other countries, they made their stamps, okay, and then they came, first day cancellation. They brought it to the 2000, Philo Nippon 91, 2091. 1990, 1991. They made that to 1991. They brought this thing. That's it. Thank you all very much for being with me. And that's about the Japanese trains and the locomotives. And I think